Hello, Cadians. Welcome to our Cadian multi-office, multi-location, multi-continent wellness lunch and learn. And I just want to do a test and make sure that we are doing fine from all the locations. Can we have some IMs come over to Megan to let us know? Are we good? All right, we're waiting to hear and make sure we're live. And while we're waiting, thank you so much to our amazing production team, Will Royal and Megan and David Miller and Tim Nielsen. Just an amazing crew we have here at Cadian as we test our first Facebook Live event together. All right, so we're up in all our countries. So let's get started. Hello, Cadians, and welcome to our multi-office, multi-location, multi-continent wellness lunch and learn. Today's topic is fast and effective wellness techniques for thriving in our fast-paced work environment. And we'll be focused on high return on time investment tools and techniques, because when we're really busy, like we are in our deadline-driven business, and we experience modern stress, if we don't communicate to our bodies that we're safe, then our bodies do what they do, which is they lovingly look out for us. And the way that can show up in our modern lives can be in the form of less patience or less resourcefulness or less creativity or less energy. And when I say less energy, I'm talking about in the long term, because how many of us have been on deadline and felt that surge of energy and then experienced that wired and tired feeling? How many people have ever experienced being wired and tired? Right, and that's not sustainable for the long term. And beyond the patience and the resourcefulness and the creativity and the energy, there's also more troubling things like digestion challenges, fertility challenges. There are a lot of reasons why we'll want to take these modern stress and these tools that we're learning today and learn how to convert our modern stress into eustress, which is E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. Eustress is the beneficial stress that can move us towards our goals in a sustainable way. Does that make sense? Everyone following me so far? That's great. So we'll be talking about some of those tools today, but maybe first I'll introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. My name is Simona, with a very long last name. I'm Simona Haji Georgalis. And in addition to being a marketing strategist, which means that I am very familiar with our high deadlines, as all of us in this business, I am also a certified personal fitness trainer and author of the Busy Woman's Guidebook to Vibrant Vitality. And for our colleagues in the Madrid office, it's available in the Spanish title, Vitalidad Vibrante, una guía para la mujer moderna. I've been interviewed on the topic of wellness mindsets, of productivity, and of behavior change by magazines, radios, and podcasters. And most recently was the on-site vitality coach for VIPs at a business leadership conference. And there's a reason that a lot of business executives refer to me as their secret weapon. And I'll be sharing some of those tools with you today. And then I'll also be integrating some of those into our upcoming Cadian Wellbeing Initiative, which we'll talk about towards the end of today's Lunch and Learn. So can we have just a check-in, because we only have a few people in this location, and I want to make sure that all the locations across the continents are with us. We're good? All right, that's terrific. So the way I have structured today's Lunch and Learn for us is, first I'm going to teach us a breathing technique, and I'm going to break it down step by step. And then we're going to put it all together and get to experience what it feels like to invest 30 seconds in our wellness using that technique. From there, I'm going to share a story or two with you, and I want you to know ahead of time that the story's not a tangent. Everything in this Lunch and Learn has been designed for you with your return on time investment in mind. Through story, we'll be activating parts of our mind so that when we learn the rest of the techniques, we'll be best set up for success, not just in learning the techniques rotely, but in knowing which one or two we must take with us out of today's Lunch and Learn and into the rest of our day and the rest of our week and beyond. And then we'll go into the rest of those techniques, and we'll wrap up by talking about our upcoming Cadiant Wellbeing Initiative, which will be rolling out in a few weeks. So with that, I would like to strongly encourage you, whether you're live with me right now or if you're in one of our other offices or you're listening to the recording later, to participate in the exercises. And at the same time, I'd also like to encourage us all to keep our eyes on our own choices, because we do have some colleagues that will have very good reasons for not actively and outwardly participating in one or more of the exercises. So it's for all of us to keep our eyes on our own choices and do what's right for us. So with that, I would like to ask us all to roll our shoulders forward and then lean forward and bring your eye gaze down about a 45-degree angle. And you can bring your hand into your line of sight. And you can visualize your phone in your hand. And from this rolled forward, hunched forward, looking down position, let's all take a nice deep breath in through our nose and out of our mouth. And we'll do that together now. And then stay there for a moment and notice how you feel, because it's a data point. And once you've gathered that data point, why don't we all sit up? We can bring our shoulders up and back and down. And from that good posture position, bring our eyes forward, shoulders back. We'll sit up or stand up tall. If you're sitting, rock in your sit bones for a moment and bring yourselves a little taller. And if you're standing, rock a little and bring yourselves a little taller. A nice visual tactical cue is to picture the back of your navel coming to meet the front of your spine, and that automatically brings us up a little bit. So shoulders are back and down, eye gaze is forward, and we're going to take that same deep breath in through our nose and out of our mouth. And let's do that together now. That's right. And that's your second data point. And let's notice if you experience something different between your first breath and the second breath. And if you did, what was that? And what did you learn? Building on that posture breath, we're going to add. The first thing we're going to add is a tactical cue. So hopefully you can still hear me. I'm going to put the mic down for a moment and put it near me. And please text in if you can't. We are going to place one hand on our heart and one on our upper stomach. Okay? So one hand on our heart and one hand on our upper stomach. And I'll explain to you why, and then we'll take a breath together doing that. So the hand on our upper stomach is actually on our diaphragm. And the reason it's there is it's a tactical cue to remind our bodies to breathe deeply. Because when we are, in fact, in mortal danger, we humans often go into what's called shallow breathing. So when we are not in mortal danger, but we're experiencing modern stress, we can communicate to our bodies that we're safe by breathing deeply and into our bodies. So this is a tactical cue to remind us to breathe more deeply. The hand on our heart is because there's an increasing body of research to the benefits of heart rate coherence. And if you're interested in reading more about heart rate coherence, a great resource is the HeartMath Institute. And one of the techniques for increasing heart rate coherence is to breathe into your heart. And by placing your hand on your heart, again, as a human, there are certain things that we know will happen. So by placing our hands in these tactical cues, we're increasing our probability of breathing deeply into our bodies and breathing into our hearts. So now, knowing why we're doing that, why don't we all together place one hand on our heart And one hand on our heart and one hand on our upper stomach. I'll show you. And from that posture breath, with our tactical cues, we'll take a nice deep breath in through our nose and out through our mouth together now. That's right. We can rest our hands for a moment, but if you can, try and keep in good posture and work with our physiology, our diaphragm, so that we can keep that breath flowing and that oxygen coming to our cells. The next thing we're going to add onto this breath is we're going to exhale for as long or longer than we inhale. So we're going to exhale for as long or longer than we inhale. And why are we doing that for this breath? We're doing that because when we breathe in, we're taking oxygen into our bodies and we're nourishing our cells. And when we exhale, we're expiring the byproduct of that process. It's a mini detox, and we're making space for that next round of oxygen to come into our bodies. So why don't we do that together now? We're going to breathe, we're going to inhale, and then on the exhale, we'll exhale for as long or longer than we inhaled, and we'll do that together now. All right, that's right. Now this last step in this breath is a funny one, so stay with me. We are going to bring the tip of our tongue to the roof of our mouth on the inhale, and on the exhale, we're going to let it go. So the tip of our tongue to the roof of our mouth on the inhale, and on the exhale, we're going to let it go. Why are we doing that? There's two reasons, and each one in its own right, a great reason. The first reason is, how many of you typically bring the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth? No one. No one, really? I'm shocked. Not at all shocked. So by doing something that we don't typically do, then breathing no longer becomes this automatic thing that we're not focused on. We need to concentrate in order to do that part of the breath. And because we're bringing our attention to our breath, what typically happens in our performance when we bring our attention to what we're doing? That's right. Typically, when we bring our attention to what we're doing, we increase our performance. So we're going to up-level our breathing performance by bringing our attention to it. The second reason, for those that are comfortable with the idea of Eastern philosophy, is we have a meridian system. And we have a central meridian that runs up the front of our body. We have a governing meridian that runs up our spine over the top of our head. And guess where those two meridians meet? They meet in that spot where the tip of our tongue will be hitting the roof of our mouth. So we'll be giving ourselves a mini acupressure treatment, and we'll be keeping our energies in flow. And the way I like to visualize energy and flow is a quote that Bruce Lee has been known to say, which I really like a lot, is that we want to be in flow, and you can picture water in flow rather than stale or stagnant. So why don't we try that breath together now? We're going to bring the tip of our tongue to the roof of our mouth on the inhale, and on the exhale, we're going to let it go. And let's do that together now. That's right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put all those together. So we're going to posture up, which means shoulders back and down, eye gaze forward, back of our navel meeting the front of our spine as best we can, sitting up tall. We'll use our tactical cues, one hand on our heart, one hand on our upper stomach. We're going to exhale for as long or longer than we inhale. And on the inhale, we're going to bring the tip of our tongue to the roof of our mouth. Let's try one breath like that together now. That's right. And now if you stay in that position, we're going to get to experience what it feels like to invest 30 seconds in our wellness using that technique. And I'll tell you ahead of time, 30 seconds might feel like a long time, but enjoy it. It's fabulous. And let's start that together now. That's right. Very good. And now notice how you feel. Scan your body for any sensations. You may or may not be experiencing a quiet, calm strength. You may notice where there was once mental chatter, there's quiet. You may notice a relaxation in your jaw or your neck or your shoulders or your lower back. You may be feeling inspired. What is it for you? How did you experience that breath? And based on how you experienced it, was it a good return on your time investment, that 30 seconds you just invested in your wellness? And while you're savoring the feeling of all that oxygen in your body, I'd like to share a story with you. But first, I'm going to have a sip of water. The story begins on an airplane ride in a time before iPods and smartphones, and even before Google search and online plane reservations. A long time ago. Picture a young woman, about 22, with her paper boarding pass in her hand, getting ready to board a flight to Guatemala, where she'd be spending the next 2 years living in a Mayan village and working with local businesses and artisans. As she boarded the plane, she quickly scanned the seats to try and get an idea of if she was on her way back to a window seat, because she was hoping for a window seat so that she could have a view as they flew in to this new place that she'd be calling home. But she quickly realized that she was not on her way back to a window, not even an aisle, but the dreaded middle seat. When she got back to her row, the person on the window was already settled in and reading a book. So she sat down, got comfortable, and reached into her backpack for what was at the time her most prized material possession, her yellow sport Walkman. She popped in a mixtape that she had made especially for the journey, pressed play, and got lost in the music and thoughts of the future that awaited her. She hardly noticed that someone had sat down next to her on the aisle until he leaned in to her line of sight, and that sparked a conversation, which is how they met. Shortly after arriving in Guatemala, their paths crossed again. And as two civilians, foreigners living amidst a civil war, they bonded quickly. And within a few short months, they were married. Now, had this couple thought it all the way through, had they taken even one should you get married quiz out of any magazine, any book, anything, I think you know where this is going. The answer would have been a resounding heck no. No. Other than their shared experience and the temporary safety benefit, because at that time, during that war, a civilian's marital status did have an inkling of safety benefit, but it was short term. They were only there for 2 years. So other than those reasons, they were not compatible by nearly any measure that would suggest they were going to have a healthy relationship. And yet, because they had made that decision, they stayed married for nearly 10 years. Can you imagine sticking something out, even if you had a reason for doing it in the first place, and even if you had a reason for sticking it out, Can you imagine sticking something out that wasn't good for you for years upon years? Now, that's an extreme example because I imagine that most of you, most of the time, are more discerning about your long-term decisions and commitments than I was. However, I'm wondering if some of us, and possibly even many of us, are not quite as discerning in every single decision we've ever made, every single small choice that we make. And I can guess because we're humans. And so being humans, we get to learn from some of those choices. And so imagine you make a small choice without thinking, and you don't even realize, but that choice builds momentum. And then you repeat that choice, and you repeat it again, and then you built a habit. And then one day, looking back, you realize you have inadvertently made a long-term commitment based on the choices you're making. And when you realize that, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make a choice, and it's an opportunity to realize that you are now amongst the many fabulous human beings who are very successful because they look at their life choices, they appreciate and know that they zig and zag on the journey, and that the journey is sometimes bumpy, but always gives us an opportunity to grow. And once we've identified that we want to make a change, the next thing we can do is decide what we're going to do about that. And if you've just made a decision about a tiny habit, maybe a small wellness habit or a small wellness blocker, that you can change and introduce more vigor and vitality into your life, if you've made that decision just now, then I want you to know that you have just changed. Because change happens in an instant. Yes, there are behavior change hacks, and if there's interest, we can weave those teachings and learnings into our Radiant Wellbeing Initiative. And again, we'll talk towards the end about the Wellbeing Initiative and how your feedback can get weaved into that. So if there's interest, we'll talk about behavior change hacks. But know today, even without those hacks, if you identified something and you decided, then you have already made that change. And you'll get the tool you need today to take with you from this Lunch and Learn and into the rest of your day to make that change sustainable. So with that in mind, why don't we go and learn our first technique? So how about we all stand up? And even if you are in a different office, it's still a great idea. Let's all stand up together. And we're going to learn another technique. This technique can actually be done standing or sitting, but we stood because when we change our physiology, we can change our attention. And so this first technique is called the finger squeeze. And it's simply squeezing the ends of our fingers. I'll show you. And then we'll do it together. So it looks like this. Can you hear me now? So it looks like this. And you're going to take the fingers of one hand. And why don't we start doing that together now? So you'll take the fingers of one hand and squeeze the tips of your fingers of the other hand. And then we'll switch hands and do that. And once you've gone through all your fingers, you can go through a second time if you want. Notice the sensations you're feeling right now. Many people experience that in a way that boosts their energy, in a sustainable and organic way that boosts immediately and then slowly fades over time, not a sharp spike up and a sharp spike down. So scan your body and notice if that's true for you. And if it's not, what is true for you? And how did you experience that technique? And based on how you feel right now, when might you find that technique useful? And when might you be able to use it? The next technique that we are going to learn is not as discreet as the finger squeeze. The finger squeeze is nice because you can do it at work, you can do it at home, you can do it on the train. But this next technique is less discreet. I'm going to first show you what it looks like, and then we'll do it together. And this is going to be, actually, I'm going to show you, and then I'll describe to you what I'm doing, and then we'll do it together. One moment. Please hold. All right, so that technique is called the walk like an Egyptian. Well, I call it the walk like Egyptian, and I'll show you why, and then I'll explain it to you. Walk like an Egyptian. So why don't we, now that you've seen it, I'll share with you when it's a great time to use it, and you'll notice if you experience that, and then we'll do it all together. That one is, for me, an excellent technique, and I've had a lot of clients tell me that they've had the same experience. It's a reset moment. So when you're on deadline and you're at a deliverable over and over and over again until it's starting to blur together, but there's not enough time to sleep on it and then come back to it fresh because it's due. That walk like an Egyptian is a refresh without having to sleep on it when, again, there's no time to sleep on it. So even though it's not that discreet, it is sometimes appropriate for the workplace if that's what you're doing. So why don't we try this together now? So we'll all take a nice deep breath in through our nose, and on the exhale, we'll bring our hands to our heart. Very nice. On the next inhale, we're going to put one hand up and one hand down. And stretch. And on the exhale, bring our hands to our heart. And then opposite hands. And on the exhale, back to our heart. And then we can let our hands go. And as you're noticing how you feel, we can all take a seat. So scan your body for a moment and notice how you feel and what you've experienced and when you might be able to use that technique in your life. The next technique I'm going to share with you is called the arm pretzel, and this is an amazing tool. It's got so many applications. I will reveal one of those to you today. But know that if you see one of your colleagues doing this technique, you may not know what's going on for them because it's got a lot of really juicy and amazing applications. So I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to talk you through what I did. So hold on 1 second while I put the microphone down. So what did I just do? Why don't we, everybody, if we can start together, that would be great. So if you can bring your arms out in front of you so they're perpendicular to your body and parallel to the floor, both arms. And then flip your hands so that the backs of your hands are facing one another. And from there you can place one hand over the other. And clasp your fingers and then very carefully down, around, and up. And you'll end up with your hands a little bit over your heart, a little under your chin. And hopefully you're comfortable. And you'll take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out of your mouth. And this would be a great time to use the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth technique. Into your nose and tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Exhale, let it go. And let's take one more breath. And let it all the way go, hands and everything. Just carefully come back down. And notice how you feel. It's very likely that most or all of you are experiencing something through that technique. So you can think about where you might apply it, and I'll share with you one of the applications. when, again, we're on deadline, notice a theme here, and sometimes we're on deadline with multiple projects at the same time. And so we will be thinking about those multiple projects, but in reality, we do need to tackle one at a time. So in order to quiet those other tactics, we can write it down so we remember to come back to them. Then do the arm pretzel and bang out the first one. And then do the arm pretzel and bang out the second one. And it quiets the chirps of those other deadlines and deliverables waiting for you, because you've written it down, you know you're getting to it. But then you center yourself with quiet focus and tackle one at a time. So that's one terrific application of the arm pretzel. And let's see what time. All right, I think I'll share one more technique with you, and I'll save the rest for weaving into our well-being initiative. So this last technique, if everyone could smile. I can't see all of you, but you can see me, and you can see each other. If you're everybody who's in the same office is smile at each other. And if you're listening to a recording, that's cool. You can smile in a mirror. Why are we smiling? We are smiling. This is an amazing return on your time investment, because when we smile, and by the way, if you're not feeling a smile, you can grab a pen, stick it in your teeth. That puts your facial muscles into smile position, and you can fake it till you make it. When we smile, our brains produce neuropeptides that can reduce stress. Our brains also produce the feel-good neurotransmitters of dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. So by doing that simple technique, you can brighten somebody else's day, and you can boost yours. So hopefully everyone is smiling for a moment. And as you are basking in the good feelings of your smiles, let's take a moment to think about what we just learned. We learned how to convert our modern stress into eustress, which is the beneficial stress that fuels us towards our goals in a sustainable way, by collaborating with our bodies, communicating with our bodies that we are safe. We learned a really powerful breathing technique. We learned the impact of posture on our breath. We learned the finger squeeze and the walk like an Egyptian. We learned the arm pretzel and the power of a smile. And we also learned something that our inner wisdom wanted us to know. And that will be unique to each and every one of us. But we'll leave here knowing which one thing we need to take with us out of today's Lunch and Learn and into the rest of our day and the rest of our week and beyond. So with that, I want to thank you all so very much. And I want to introduce us all to what's coming next, which is Arcadian Wellbeing Initiative. Today was the pre-kickoff to that, but in the coming weeks, we will be rolling out Arcadian Wellbeing Initiative. So the SLT has already signed off on the proposal for it, so there's a straw man for what we're going to be doing, but the actual implementation is going to be based on everybody's feedback. So be on the lookout for emails as we form our well-being committee, and we can co-create our well-being initiative together. So until then, know that I am right here wishing you abundant wellness today and always. Take care, be well, and may you shine from the inside out. See you next time.